Welcome back to QuietKat's series on maintenance. In this video we're going to talk about installing the fenders. The tools you will need to install the fenders are a 5mm Allen key. At QuietKat we have two types of fenders. We have the rigid fender kit, which works well on our fat bikes, and we also have the flex fender, which works really well on our full suspension bikes. In this video we're going to install the rigid fender kit onto our Predator fat bike. We'll start with the front fender because it's the easiest to install. If you have a Warrior, an Ambush, or another light bike, you're going to need the spacer that goes on top of this piece here. For our Predator or Apex level with the air suspension fork, we can go ahead and discard that spacer. We're going to start by making sure this is nice and loose, and then we're going to go ahead and go underneath the fork and insert this piece up into the space on the steer tube under the fork. So with this piece nice and loose, I'm going to go ahead and feed this underneath, making sure that we use the step to come up in front. And then we're going to insert that squeeze bolt up into the steer tube. Make sure that we get it all the way up into the top. And then we'll go ahead and tighten down the wing nut on the bottom. We're going to get this pretty tight so that it doesn't fall out, but again, not too tight that we break the fender. Using these little dials, go ahead and loosen that up, and that's going to allow us to make the adjustments on the tail end so that it doesn't impact the frame when we're turning, and of course doesn't whack on the tire. So we'll get to a nice centralized position, line up the grooves, tighten that up. There's our front fender. So our rear fender is going to attach to our seat post and hang over the rear wheel. There are two ways you can do this. You can physically open the whole clamp and come around the seat tube. The other option you can do is remove the seat tube from the bike and then put the pieces together. Really, it's up to you. On our QuietKat fat bikes, our seat tube diameter is 27.2 millimeters, which is smaller than most seat tubes. Therefore, we need to use the small plastic spacers that come included with the fender. These are going to insert inside the collar and wrap around to ensure a tight fit. So with our spacers installed, we're going to be very careful that these don't fall out. We're going to come in here, wrap the clamp around the seat tube, squeeze it tight, using the bolted nut that comes with it. Go ahead and install the nut, and then we'll take the bolt, put it in here, and just start by just getting it snug. We'll tighten it after we line everything up. The next thing we want to do is align everything so that we don't rub the fender against the tire. So we'll come down here and find the height of the collar. That looks good. Then we'll go ahead and pull this first knob and adjust the height of the wishbone. Get that dialed in. And then using this knob, there's one on either side, loosen those up. We can then adjust the orientation of the fender itself. This may take a couple different tries between the two different adjustments to ensure proper alignment. So I'm going to go back to the front, bring the wishbone up a bit, and that's looking pretty good. We can go ahead and tighten down the clamp around the seat post. So with the fender properly aligned, using our 5mm wrench, we're going to tighten the bolt and the clamp around the seat post. This should be tight enough so that the fender doesn't move, but not so tight that you break the plastic. Now we're all set. Those are the front and rear rigid fenders installed, ready to ride.